Welcome back, focused learners. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer, because we're tackling a topic that affects every single one of us literally every single day. We so often think about our finances as pure mathematics, budgets, spreadsheets, simple addition and subtraction. But what if I told you that your relationship with money has very little to do with math and absolutely everything to do with survival? Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to decode the psychology of wealth habits and look at the hidden drivers behind why we do what we do with our cash.
So I want you to ask yourself a question right now, and be really honest here. Do you ever feel a literal physical knot in your stomach when you just look at a price tag? Or on the flip side, do you ever find yourself buying things you don't even really like the moment you feel stressed out, just because hitting that checkout button makes you feel a fleeting sense of emotional safety? If you answered yes to either of those, you're definitely not alone. And much more importantly, you aren't doing anything wrong.
There's a really profound psychological concept to consider here. Your bank account is often a direct mirror of your nervous system. Think about that for a second. Whether you're someone who obsessively hoards every single penny, or you're someone who completely avoids even opening your bills, these behaviors aren't character flaws. They're actually science-backed signs of exactly how your unique brain processes safety, danger, and stress.
Here's our psychological roadmap for today. Number 1. Money is your nervous system. 2. Hoarders and impulsive spenders. 3. Avoiders and guilt-ridden givers. 4. The calculated controller. And 5. Healing your financial brain. We are going to decode the rare traits hidden behind our financial habits so you can understand exactly what they reveal about your inner world.
Let's start with Section 1. Money is your nervous system. We need to completely reframe our financial behaviors right now, viewing them as self-protection mechanisms rather than flaws.
We really have to stop seeing our money habits as financial failures. Just like your body automatically chooses a specific sleeping position at night to make you feel physically and emotionally safe, your mind actually wires itself around money to survive. It develops a highly specific relationship with money to protect you from uncertainty based on what it needed in the past. It's a beautifully complex adaptation, and understanding it is the absolute first key to unlocking real financial peace.
Let's move to Section 2, Hoarders and Impulsive Spenders, and see how this builds to contrast our first two hyper-stressed financial profiles.
First up, we have what psychologists call the security hoarder. If you find it almost impossible to spend money on yourself, even when you know for a fact you have plenty in the bank, you likely possess a trait called survival independence. This is a trait frequently found in children who had to grow up way too fast. Psychologically, you learned early on that emotional or physical support just wasn't guaranteed, so you stopped expecting comfort from others and started relying solely on yourself. You view your savings account not as a tool for pleasure, but literally as the only reliable parent in a highly unpredictable world.
Now contrast that with the impulsive spender. Notice the massive difference here. The hoarder uses money as a literal shield against uncertainty, but the impulsive spender uses spending as an escape hatch. When life feels overwhelmingly out of control, the impulsive spender doesn't lock down. They try to buy their way out of the stress. They use the act of purchasing to fill emotional gaps, hoping a new item will finally make them feel understood, or just hand them back a sense of control over their reality.
And this brilliantly illustrates the dopamine habit loop that drives impulsive spending. It starts with Step 1, a huge wave of overwhelming stress. That triggers Step 2, a desperate craving for control or comfort, which leads inevitably to Step 3, the purchase that provides a sudden rush of dopamine and temporary relief. It is incredibly systematic.
But the catch here is a concept known as hedonic adaptation. This means your brain quickly gets used to that new baseline of pleasure, and the very next time you feel stressed, you need an even bigger purchase just to feel normal again. If this sounds like you, I really want you to hear this, loud and clear. You aren't actually addicted to the items you're buying. You're simply addicted to the temporary relief from a level of stress that your brain just doesn't know how to regulate yet.
Moving right along to Section 3, Avoiders and Guilt-Ridden Givers. Here, we're introducing the next two stress responses, shifting our focus to avoidance and the heavy burden of guilt.
Meet the financial avoider. Do you let your bills pile up on the counter? Do you refuse to check your bank balance because logging into the app just feels way too heavy? Well, this points to a trait called cognitive rigidity. This is basically the inability to think flexibly about a stressful situation. For an avoider, the brain associates anything related to money tasks with such intense discomfort or fear of judgment that it automatically hits the escape button. Your brain literally shuts down the task just to save you from the anxiety. But what are you actually escaping from? A deep-seated fear of failure.
By not looking at the numbers, you're actively protecting your self-image. It's a quiet, subconscious self-protection mechanism. If you don't face the reality of your finances, you can't technically fail at managing them. It's brilliant in the short term, but sadly, it actually blocks your personal and financial growth in the long run because you can't grow if you don't face the reality. Next up is the guilt-ridden giver. If you're someone who will happily drop hundreds of dollars on a friend, but you feel a sharp wave of guilt buying a $20 shirt for yourself, you might be dealing with the effects of parentification. This happens when you were expected to manage adult emotions or situations long before you were developmentally ready. You learned very early on that your own needs had to come dead last, making receiving care or asking for support feel completely foreign and uncomfortable. Notice the stark internal contrast here. When you spend on others, you feel safe because you feel useful. But spending on yourself triggers a sharp wave of guilt. You suddenly feel like a burden. Your relationship with money reveals a heartbreaking, deep-seated belief. You feel like you literally have to earn your right to exist by being useful to absolutely everyone but yourself. Section 4, the calculated controller. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is we are going to sharply interrupt the pattern of hyper-stressed profiles and introduce the grounded, aspirational state. These are the people who seem to navigate the world with a quiet, unbothered financial ease. And it's not because they were born lucky. It's because they heavily practice a trait called cognitive reflection. This is the rare, cultivated ability to pause and question your very first instinct. When they feel the urge to panic buy during a stressful week or the urge to hoard cash out of fear, they use this trait to stop, reflect, and think much deeper about the logic behind that choice. A calculated controller demonstrates incredibly high emotional regulation. Much like someone who sleeps in the highly structured soldier position, these highly intelligent individuals value order and hold themselves to high standards. But their absolute superpower is this. They allow themselves to feel financial stress without letting that emotion dictate their actions. They can look at a plunging stock portfolio or a surprise bill, feel the anxiety, sit with it, and still engage in complex problem solving without acting impulsively. That is high emotional intelligence at work. And that brings us to Section 5, healing your financial brain. It's time to replace all that financial shame with deep psychological validation and empathy. If you recognized yourself in the hoarder, the spender, the avoider, or the giver, I really want you to let this next thought sink in. You are not broken. You are not inherently bad with money. Recognizing these traits simply means that your nervous system adapted to immense pressure early on in your life. Your brain is just using its profound intelligence to try and keep you safe the only way it knows how.
So the crucial point is this. Healing your relationship with your finances doesn't start with a better spreadsheet, and it definitely doesn't start with a stricter budget. It starts with extending genuine empathy to yourself. It starts with looking at your bank account and simply allowing your nervous system to relax. The survival tactics of your past are no longer required. You are finally allowed to rest.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative thought. Now that you know exactly how your mind works when it comes to your money, what behaviors are you going to notice next? The human mind is a fascinating puzzle, and there is so much more to decode. If you want to keep uncovering the hidden psychology behind human behavior, the deep truths that most people completely miss, make sure you hit that subscribe button for this explainer channel. We're going to keep exploring these incredible topics together. Until next time, stay curious and stay focused.